Dr. Siobhan O'Sullivan does like knowing animals. Dr. Siobhan O'Sullivan does like knowing animals.
Hey people, welcome to Knowing Animals. Knowing Animals is a podcast where we speak to animal studies scholars about a piece of their work. I'm Siobhan O'Sullivan and I do like knowing animals. Well, as always, this episode of Knowing Animals is brought to you by ASA. ASA is the Australasian Animal Studies Association. ASA does a lot of things to support animal studies and animal studies scholars, and one of those really important things is ASA holds a conference every 2 years. Well, the next conference is coming up in the middle of 2019, and it's going to be in New Zealand. It's going to be hosted by Annie Potts, and it's about it's called Decolonising Animal Studies. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. So if you don't already know, or you haven't already planned for the conference, now's the time to start thinking about how you're going to get yourself to New Zealand for the ASA, the Australasian Animal Studies Association Conference. Now, this episode is also brought to you by MC Pony. MC Pony is a hip-hop artist, a songwriter, and someone who's very passionate about animal issues. MC Pony does the intro music, the theme music to this podcast, so you know that she's very talented. Now, I suggest that you quickly get yourself over to her website, which is Veganthused. That's VEGANTHUSED.com, and check out her rhymes. That's MC Pony. Okay, well, once again, this episode of Knowing Animals is coming to you from Spain from the Rethinking Animalities Conference. And once again, I'm joined by a speaker who I would not normally get to speak to, so it's a real privilege. So I'm joined this week by, this is, again, when I get to this stage, I always remember that I've not practiced people's names adequately. So this week, I'm joined by Angelica.
Angelica, it's okay.
Angelica Caiza, every single word. Okay. Why don't you jump in and say your name the way you pronounce it?
Okay, Angelica Caiza.
Caiza.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Villegas.
Villegas.
Yes.
Who's a PhD student in the Department of Cultural Geography at the University of... Now, this is also going to be a problem. Groningen
Yeah.
in the Netherlands. So, Angeline... So, you say Angelica.
Yeah, I say Angelica most of the time.
And is that how people pronounce it in Ecuador?
No, it's like actually how they do it yesterday, Angelica.
Oh, Angelica, right. Wonderful. So today we're going to discuss the paper Becoming Bat, Bats, Bat Lovers and Bat-detectors.
Yes.
Which is currently under review. So hopefully by the time you hear this episode, it's been accepted, hopefully with the journal Social and Cultural Geographies. But if it ends up being published elsewhere, I'll put up the journal title in the podcast notes. And we should also mention the co-author, which is Bettina van Hoven.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome to the podcast, Angelica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And it's a very pleasure to meet you.
It's wonderful to have you here. So why this paper? What inspired it?
This paper, it's like the result of my research master. My background is like a biologist, and I am actually a bat biologist. I work with bats. I have been working with bats in the tropics more of the time in Ecuador, and I was always triggered about the issue of conservation. Even though that I did research on bats, and I was in the field, and I was working in the forest, and I had the privilege to touch them and capture them, I couldn't find an answer to the issue of conservation. So then is when I start looking what it is really necessary to do. I mean, this is not coming from just science, the conservation per se of the animals. So then is when I just turned and I said, okay, maybe I should study humans to understand how can I do this. And I just switched to social science and start my master in social science. And then it's how it becomes the trip in this becoming bad and connecting human technology and animals.
Wonderful. So as you note in your paper, bats tend to evoke strong emotional responses in humans. What is it about the bat that is such a trigger or so significant in the human mind?
Well, one of the main issues that bats are facing is actually the perception of bats by humans, and most of them is like the relationship with bats with rabies, like a lot of disease around. They are dirty animals. They're scary because they are also nocturnal. They live at night, and since like histories, stories from childhood, like people just think about like they think like they are going to get entangled in your hair, or they're all the bats, they bite you and they suck your blood, or they are going to attack you if you are like close to them because they fly close by. So there's a lot of myths about bats that are just the result of like local stories. And nowadays, just with a lot of research on bats, we know a lot of positive things from these animals and how they play a very important role in the ecosystems with pollination of plants, like, for example, mangoes, bananas. The tequila is pollinated, the plant of tequila is pollinated by bats. So it's a very economic power in Mexico. And the insect control that they have in the agricultural lands. So it was not visualized before. And now with new researches, you can see that. But still, these myths are still present, and they are also affecting the conservation status of them.
So can you tell us a little bit about how bats live in the Netherlands and their close links with humans?
Well, the Netherlands is a flat country, and they don't have actually, I would say, that nature. Most of the nature is, the old nature is like maybe 60, 70 years old, forests, parks, because most of the forests, they're the bar to do agriculture or expansion of the urban area, or the transformation of the landscape was really strong there. So many of the bats that used to live there, they just adapt to human construction. Nowadays, it's very often to find bats in your cellars or in the roof, in the tails. If you have a small crack in your house, they can use it just to go in. So if you have also this construction double wall that they use for isolation, it's probably you are going to have those ones. Churches, old houses, houses from the 70s, 60s, 50s, they have that kind of a structure that like the bats like. New houses, like they are very solid and also very well isolated, no holes anywhere. They probably not, but most of the houses you have it. And also like the Netherlands is so small that urban and nature are enclosed there and overlapping all of the time. So the gardens in the middle of the houses are good places to bats for eat. The water channels are also good places that they can take water or they can fly around. So there is a kind of a design in the cities that also help the bats to mobilize there. So it is a combination. It's really interesting the cases in there.
So in the paper, you're not just interested in the incidental or unplanned ways in which bats and humans come into contact.
Mm-hmm.
You are interested in people who seek out bats, who want to engage with bats and be part of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about your research method?
Yeah, actually, that was one of the interesting part of my methods when I wanted to start with bats, to work with bats in Groningen. I I thought, okay, I'm going to interview people, la la la. But then I found that there is actually a club of bat volunteers. And I was really surprised that there's actually people that like bats instead of being afraid or, just try to get rid of them. So I just get in contact with the club, with the main, the secretary director, Clarissa Neinhaus, and I started talking to her about my project, and I explained to her that I was interested on see how the practices of bat lovers, of bat advocates, are developed in the city. And then she was very kind. She connected me with other people, and through the snowball, I start getting some participants. And also, I use in-depth interviews. So I have an interview with each one of them. And also, I did participation observation, which means that I went with them to do different activities during the year. So I joined the Bat Club somehow, and now I'm kind of a member. So when they need me, I help as well to count bats or to do some transects in city. And also when I am doing my research, I always ask them, like, can I join you? Can I take in this part of the activity, some questions for you, pictures? So yeah, we have a very clear way to work with them. Mm-hmm.
So one of the concepts that you're interested in the paper is this notion of becoming animal.
Yes.
Can you tell listeners what it means to you for someone to become animal, for a human to become animal?
Well, as I was discussing in my paper, I took 2 authors, well, 3 in reality, to develop my own methodology. And this one is Deleuze and Guattari, and the other one is Donna Haraway. Yeah, both address the becoming animal in a way of encounter and in a way of synchronization. And Donna Haraway just add the technology in order to connect with the animals. So for me, in the case of my participants, as Deleuze said, like, becoming animal is not just to copy the animal or just try to behave like the animal. Becoming animal is like encounter them and just attune to them. And this is actually what they are doing. My participants go at night. They maybe sometimes take a nap in the afternoon, and they go at night to work, volunteer work. And then they are using technologies. We as humans are not made to be at night, So they have lights, and they have small electronic devices to try to find the bats in the dark. They walk, and they try to figure out, like, the space where the animals are flying, what they are doing, what they are looking for. And through all of this practice of learning, they just kind of get a glimpse of the life of the bat. And that is how they connect and engage with them. Also, all of this activity just increased empathy of my participants towards the bats. So they get a very strong bond later on. So then it's like that is maybe the most important part, because if you are talking about conservation of the animals, maybe for me is like the key point is try to find where is this bonding happen, and when you start to care and be more empathetic with the animal. So yeah, that is why I think my becoming bat participants become a bat. So.
And do you have any hesitations in using the expression bat lover? Does that have any negative connotations to you?
No, it's not a negative connotation, but I have in my group of bat lovers, not all of them belong to the group. So when they have the communication through mail, they always use the word dear Fledermaus liver, that is like bat lovers, dear bat lovers, when you translate to English. But there are other people that they don't belong to the club, but they also like bats. So they are more like, I mean, I'm using the term that come from the bat club, but other ones are not from the bat club. So that is what I am hesitating using, just bat lovers or bat advocates. So it's something that I have to think about it. Yeah.
And you note in the paper that some of your bat lovers go on to become advocates. They go on to do some political work for the bats. Can you tell us what you observed in that case?
Well, the bat work group in Groningen, it is not just a club. It's also, it has a status as an organization. So they told me that 10 years ago, when they switched to be a hobby club to an organization, they did it because they will be able to fight legal battles. So in that point, the secretary that I was interviewing, she told me like, in the Netherlands, actually in Groningen, there is not an academic background behind the bats. So most of the work and more of the legal litigations comes from the citizens. So they organize, or they found a problem, like somebody wants to destroy a building with a colony, whatever, and they organize themselves. They go to the municipality, they complain about it, and they ask for a better way to deal with the issue. They complain to the organization or the enterprise that is going to do the work, etc. That's the first step. If it is not working, they go to the national law court in The Hague, and they continue with the legal issue there until they can get better compensation or a better planning for some cases. In the Netherlands, bats have a very high status of protection. Every building that is going to be built or going to be destroyed, or every big project that needs to remove trees or parts or water, whatever, all of them, they have to have studies for bats. It's part of the law. And there are even cases, like in Rotterdam, they wanted to build a big area for, I don't know the English word I've missed. It's like duck. When you have these big boats that bring imports and...
Like a port?
Yeah, but it's another, anyway, a port, okay. And they have to stop the port and build the port in another area because there was a colony of bats there. So in the Netherlands, they have a lot of what they call fauna passages. That is like some kind of design, building, or structures that help animals to move. So in that way, I found the Netherlands very... they also recognize the animals. Of course, there is no like an equal level, but at least they do something. But also it comes from the society. They push a lot, and that is how they get it.
Fascinating. Well, I ask everyone who comes on Knowing Animals to answer 5 quick questions. Are you ready for your 5 quick questions? Yeah. Can you recall the first piece of pro-animal scholarship you ever read? Let's talk to social science. So one of the books that I read was Donna Haraway, and in the beginning was kind of difficult to understand her. But then when I went to her book, When Animals Met, I just rethink the whole relationship with my cat. I already had a cat for 10 years, and we have a very close relationship. But I always, as a biologist, thought like, oh yeah, she's here because she knows that I am food. But after the book, I totally changed the perception of how was my relationship with my cat. And that's also the way that I am seeing now the relationships that I have with other animals. Interesting. can you recall the first piece of pro-animal scholarship you ever wrote?
I have to say it's also a woman. I got like Sarah Watmore from the UK. I read about these hybrid geographies, and also the way that as humans we kind of place animals in different contexts. And yeah, I was really impressed for the way that she can describe how as humans we use animals and how we place them in different networks, and also is connected with my research.
So is that the answer to the question, if you had to name one animal studies scholar who's had a big impact on you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be Donna Haraway.
Donna
and
Haraway, yeah. So in terms of your second answer, can you recall the first piece of pro-animal scholarship you ever wrote? What was that? What's the name of the first thing you wrote?
That one is also in biology, but it was about like pollination by bats in the cloud forest. And but that was my first. But now I think in my hybrid career, the first one will be this one, becoming
This
bat.
one. Okay. So then the third question is one animal studies scholar who's had a big impact on you, and you want to say Donna Haraway?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I know that I use her a lot, but it seems so interesting how she can connect all of these three worlds dimension, the technology, the humans, and the animals together, and how she can explain and make the idea of this relationship more flesh. So it's there something like is happening, and you can connect and you can engage directly. So it's really touching for me.
Wonderful. So this is the fourth question. What is the most important thing academics can do for animals?
I think the most important thing is to be flexible and to be open to collaborate with other fields. I found sometimes as a biologist that we think we have the reason, and I found sometimes as a social scientist that also we have the reason. I think we have to be more open, and I think we have to be more humbled and just embrace other fields of research. I think that would be the most important thing.
So the fifth question, if you had the power to change one thing about the relationship between humans and non-humans, what would it be?
That is actually a very interesting question. I was thinking about it, and I would say like, just like they said like, oh, we are animals with a high superior brain and la la la. But I mean, if we have to live or survive in the forest, we would just die. So there are animals, and each animal is just meant to be superior in their own niche. So we somehow are just equal. So the only thing that will change, like, okay, we just have to see each other like in a different way. We are so diverse. Just accept the diversity we have. Yeah.
Wonderful. So what are you working on next?
I am working in my next paper right now that is related with the same topic, and it's called My Neighbor the Bat. And as I told you, in the Netherlands, there are many bats living in houses. So now I am doing also my field work, interviewing people that have bats living in their houses and how they perceive this sharing of a space, and if they are okay with that or not. So how the relationship having bats actually living in your house are like, yeah, what is happening there? So this is my second paper.
Fantastic. And how can people find out more about your work?
Well, at the moment I am at the University of Groningen, as you said. I have the mail from the university. It's m.a.caiza.villegas at rug.nl. And and my name is in Facebook too, so they can contact me. And send me a
Wonderful.
message.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to the listeners for joining us for Knowing Animals, the podcast where we talk to animal studies scholars about a piece of their work. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at knowing_animals or also on Facebook at Knowing Animals. And don't forget to leave a review on iTunes. Reviews make it easier for other people to find us. I'm Siobhan O'Sullivan, and I do like knowing animals.